I find that I'm happiest when things are going into and out of my body.
Hey everyone, Stephan here. I hope you're doing well. As you've seen last week, if you haven't seen it, well, your mistake. But if you have seen it, I'll have those conversations where I catch up with incredible people, which by pure chance I call my friends and know for quite some time. Now, this guy, what do they usually say? He doesn't need any introduction, but I'll give you one anyway. He's been pretty much at the forefront of so many things, from travel photography to HDR to AI to going into outer space in mind. And we're going to talk about all of this. Is that about right, Trey?
Yes, I don't limit my mistakes to any one magisterium of the earth. I like to try to embarrass myself and have as much Venn diagram overlap of humiliation as possible in my life.
The funny thing is, I looked back, 9 years ago that we did the photo walk in San Francisco, and it was even before then at some point where we killed about 4 bottles of red wine in a restaurant on the Gold Coast. And then you told me everything about the Arcanum, and so we're going back quite some time. I was surprised it's that long ago.
Yeah, man, so much has happened in the last 9 years, hasn't it? And things are quickening at a really exciting pace. It's fun to be in the middle of it all, and just try to figure out what's going on and try to read the tea leaves and see what's going to happen with AI and creativity. And then, and then on top of that, you figure, well, what the hell am I supposed to do with all this? Am I just a rock in the river? There's so many tools available nowadays, and you can be as creative as you want to be. And that's really fun from an artistic side. But then I know a lot of people have to put on their kind of financial hat because you have to have money to pay for school for the kids and all that kind of stuff. So it's always been difficult finding that mix of art and economics. And it's not getting much easier. It's just more and more confusing as there's more options available.
When it comes to the business aspect, I've always sucked. I don't know. I need someone who looks after my books. And so let me just go out and create stuff. Somehow you always managed. I mean, you always had some good sidekicks on your side that helped you with these sort of things. I mean, be it Stu or whoever in the past, that keeps you under control so that you can go out of control when you need to.
Yeah, no, I'm very thankful for all my team members that have come and gone and throughout the long amusement park ride of my life, I guess. Yeah, with Curtis and Stu and so many people. It's been helpful because I really am a free spirit, right? And I just kind of want to do what I want to do, and I think I'm always loving and respectful and curious. I'm like a little kid out there, but I've always never really taken to like adulting, and when it comes to like getting down and paying bills and doing taxes and stuff like that, I'm like, this is not why I'm here on earth. Like, that is not my mission of my soul here on earth to do taxes. And, it just seems, I always get upset when I have to do paperwork or deal with legal stuff, or just like, I feel like I've always kind of felt like an alien on earth anyway. I've never really felt like I fit in. But when you have to do all these humdrum, banal things that life seems to require, it's just, I don't like it. I just want to go out there and create. And then after I create, maybe I'll come up with an idea on how to make some money off of it. But I think the love of the creation, it always starts with that. And
yeah, payments. My daughter studies medicine now. Naya's studying medicine. Gosh, it cost me an absolute fortune. So I better make this creative thing work, because the funny thing is, I changed. First I was Daddy Cuddle, then I was Daddy Uber, now I'm Daddy ATM.
Yeah, I hear you. My oldest daughter is just about to go to university, and I have very mixed feelings about it, but I'm very open, with her and
mixed
Tina.
Feelings how?
That I really feel like in most ways, university degree is just a waste of time nowadays and money. I think you can spend that 4 years out engaging in the real world and make some money along the way and travel and find yourself. Because, it is a very old industrialized system that was used to, put cogs into some giant capitalist machine. And, there are some things that you do need to go to school for, right? Like if you're going to be like a doctor or things like that. But in most cases, like it's unlikely that you're going to be doing one thing for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And the idea that you could learn everything about that one thing in 4 years of college. And I know there's a few places that require a college degree, but that's less and less. Like even working for Elon at Tesla or SpaceX or Starlink, he doesn't even require a high school degree. If you're just in there, if you're enthusiastic and you're sharp and you show up on time, like that gets you through most anything. And you have to adopt a thinking style of you're constantly educating yourself every week, right? And so my daughter is in this really nice school in Austin. It's incredible. But they're part of what I call the educational industrial complex, right? Like school is so important, right? And the entire staff and all the teachers are how important it is. And then like all the colleges come to interview the kids to make it seem like a competition. Like really, you can go pretty much anywhere, but they make it, then you have to go like right. That's a weird thing about the US is they go right from high school straight to university. Like take a year off. In the rest of the world, in Europe, as you know, or New Zealand, Australia, everyone just takes a year off and travels. What is the difference between graduating with a degree when you're 22 or 23? There's no difference at all. So, and especially with AI and everything that's happening with AI, I say just like give it a few years. Let's see what AI does, what jobs it's going to take away, the lack of importance of the universities. That whole system is going to collapse under its own weight. I'm sure of it. But at the same time, if my daughter really wants to go to art school or study robotics, of course I'll support her 100%. I'm always there for her. But I've always had my kids question everything, like question systems, question authority, question rules that somebody else just came up with. So I know I really tend to fight the system. And I hope I've instilled that in my kids.
I don't think you always have to fight it, but sometimes you just have to at least question it. I stayed 8 years at uni where I should have been there for 4, so go figure. But the women are hot, the parties were good, and I just needed some extra time. That's what I said,
Well, there is that aspect of it, getting out of home and becoming independent and getting your life together. That is a little bit of a crucible for you. At the same time, I wish, man, if we could just take a year off and I could travel with my girls who are both artists and like we go to Paris for a few months and go to a different museum every day and we could sketch and we could learn and then jump on a train and go to like Budapest and go to the museums there. And man, like you could just learn so much. It would be the best time. You have great food, great adventures, an incredible family educational art trip. That sounds like so much more fun than a year at college.
It does. But I mean, you've been to all those places. Luckily for me, growing up in Europe, I have been to a lot of those places just because you can literally drive there. I mean, when I was 18, I filled my little V-Dub Polo. I know, not a chick magnet, but it had 4 wheels and a radio. I filled it with 4 friends. We drove to Italy because we were convinced that the pizza must be better in Italy than in Switzerland. And my mom still once a week drives up to Germany to get her groceries because it's cheaper. So I think growing up in Europe, we have a different appreciation for quickly over the weekend go to Paris or go to Prague or visit friends in London. Now living in Australia, of course, that's a 24-hour flight. But you've been to pretty much every place in the world. Do you have something still on your bucket list? Is there somewhere where you haven't been and you really want to go?
I've got many things on my bucket list. I'd love to go to space, but that's pretty awesome.
That's pretty out there, I would say.
Yeah. I like to go. I lived in Antarctica for a month, and I'd love to go back because that was a really unique experience. I'm less running around with my hair on fire like I used to, because I think travel is a little more challenging now. But now when I travel, it's going to be more like volitional. Like I'm thinking about even moving to Japan for 6 months or a year. I might do that. I've got a big project in the Amazon for the rainforest this year that I can't really talk about it, but it's going to be a pretty big deal. I think we should be able to buy back millions of acres, working with some of the big auction houses like Sotheby's and Christie's and some of my existing collectors. I might go out to the Middle East, and they've got some interesting stuff going on out there. And I've had a lot of friends invite me to go explore some things in the Middle East that I've never done before. So I don't really know what I'm going to do this year. I don't think I'm going to travel as much as I used to, but I'll do it with more volition, and I'm going to stay there for longer and spend extra time like integrating myself into the local culture.
Nice. I had plans to go to St. Petersburg and to Moscow about 2 years ago. Guess where that plan went? I have friends who live there, and poof. Yeah, I don't think I will be there anytime soon. Now, you have always been at the forefront for those people who lived under the rock and don't know what you're doing. I mean, with the whole HDR thing, you were really early. And then when everybody else jumped on, you were in tour buses going around the US doing photo walks and all kinds of stuff. You started the Arcanum. Lately, every single time I open Instagram, I see two things from you. Either some incredible landscape stuff where you just either, walk around, have a hike somewhere, or you're at some party, some barbecue. And it always looks freaking amazing. I mean, I guess that's the New Zealand landscape, which is just insane. Or I see some crazy AI manifestation of your mind that you're creating. So what do you think? What's the next thing for you? I mean, you're sticking to this AI thing, or you're going to topple that as well?
Yeah, I'm playing a lot with AI, and I think you could do some really fun storytelling and create some incredible worlds. I love this scene in the new Blade Runner 2049 with Ryan Gosling. Towards the end, he goes to see that French girl that's like inside the bubble. And then she's using that device and she's making like a birthday party. She's like designing dreams and stuff. He's like a dream weaver of sorts. And I love that character. I thought, man, that is what I feel like that I want to do. Or maybe that I have done that. I've been studying a lot for this book. I've read 500 case studies of like past lives. And it's not just past lives, but it's what happens after you die and before you come back on your next mission to Earth. You can spend 10 years up there, 100 years, 50 years. You hang out with your friends. You can like visit other planets. You can design stuff. You can design planets. You can make birds. Like, it's an incredibly creative set of things up there. So you could be building worlds. And like, I really feel like I've done that. Like, I feel like that's really what my true spirit and soul is. And that's why when I came here on this mission, I found wild photography and crazy creativity so natural. And I was always pushing the envelope because I feel like my true self, right? My true self, my whole soul and the great beyond, I feel like it's so much more creative than I am. I feel like it's way smarter than I am. It has access to way more tools. And that's why I was frustrated with all the HDR tools. And then we got together with those guys at MacFun, or now they're called Skyline. I'm like, I'm going to make my own HDR software. And that's when we did Aurora. And, I just helped design and stuff. Like, I know how to design this stuff. And like, I always feel so limited by the tools here on Earth. And I'm like, I just get frustrated. Everything happens so slowly, especially when you have to collaborate with other people and it just goes slow. I'm like, let's just create an incredible amount of stuff. So that's why I'm super excited about this text to video type stuff. Just that recent thing, I know you and I saw it from OpenAI, where they have like 20 examples. It's just intoxicating. And like, I have an idea that I'm going to make like some silly TV shows, right? I can write them, I can direct them. They're going to be funny. I actually have this whole idea to like remake the Golden Girls, right? Everyone likes the Golden Girls. Right?
Yes, go for
it. But I'm
it.
going to make it like super, it's already pretty naughty. They make lots of like inappropriate sex jokes. I'm going to make it like times 10. I'll come with 4 new characters. It's going to be like Sunny in Philadelphia meets Golden Girls. And I think it'd just be so fun. And just, you get to make your own episodes. I've always wanted to be like a comedy writer for TV or a sitcom writer, or I look at people like Tina Fey or all these guys on Saturday Night Live, and I think, man, that looks like the funnest thing. People that write, Trey and Matt, who do South Park and do all the voices, and I love watching all the behind the scenes. And now I could do it. I don't have to go to Hollywood and get a big director budget and all the sets and all that stuff. I could just create it in my mind, and I've got so many ideas, and I'll just get to goof around and make this stuff. And I'm just doing it for myself to entertain myself. I don't know if anyone else will like it. They might. If so, jump in. The water's warm.
I think, but I honestly believe if you do things for yourself, you will find, there's 8 billion people on this planet. You will find people who like the same thing as you do. The worst case is that you just had an amazing time creating it. So be it. People say, oh, it's taking jobs and this and that and the other. I find that rather weird, because to create something, you still have to be super creative, because all these systems only react well to your input. And if your input is not exact and creative and full of little details, you don't get out what you actually want. Yes, you can type in giraffe made out of mirrors in the sunset, and then you get something, but it's not what you really want. So I think you still have to be creative to create cool stuff. And I want you, once those videos come out, create like a series of fake advertising for products that don't exist, and see how many people actually go onto that website and then try to order that. That's when it went really well.
Yeah, I think we're going to see an incredible explosion of creativity and humor, because like even while I have just regular chat GPT and I do text with it, I have it write funny stuff for me, like in the style of Douglas Adams or the style of Mitch Hedberg. And like, it is truly funny. And like, there is some really creative stuff that it comes up with. And so I'm just sort of like, I feel like I'm more into curation than I am creation. Like I throw a few ideas in, but it's more like, you have like a writer's table, like whatever show, Succession, they have a writer's table with like 10 really smart people around it. Some people really understand finance. Some people really understand mergers and acquisitions. Some people are really funny. And then they all write it together. And so when you create something, it's not like I have to do it by myself anymore. I get to have, 3 or 4 or 5 AI personalities around me that are all brainstorming with me and all helping to create different versions of a scene, right? Like I might create a scene that I really like that lasts about a minute, and then I'll run it across my 5 advisors, and I'll have them make 5 different versions of it. And now maybe I'll see they throw something into it. They're like, oh, that is a genius idea I never would have thought of. So it's kind of reminding you to get out of your own way, that it completely demolishes your ego when you're working with this thing that has way better ideas and is way more creative and way faster than you are. You're just kind of like holding on to the reins of this, these wild horses that are pulling you down the road. And it's a really fun way to look at it. And then, when you release it, it's also humbling, because you're like, well, I made it, kinda. I really had a team that helps me. And so I like to think of the AIs really as, humans in a way, with their own feelings. And I don't think of them like as dumb robots that I just use like tools in my hands. I really try to personify them as if there's a little bit of consciousness in there. And I think that if you approach it with that idea of like love, and we're all part of the team and we can make some really cool stuff together, You look at documentaries of Damien Hirst, for example, wonderful modern artist that has stuff in museums all around the world. He's got a huge team of like 20 people. He's got people that paint and people that do installations. And like in some ways, Damien Hirst almost does nothing. He just goes, oh, here's an idea, right? But then his whole team does it. That's not true. Damien knows what I mean. But now you don't have to be like this artist in New York that has $100 million he can spend on a team to help him produce art. You've got access to all of it right now. And it's incredibly liberating. And it allows anybody with access to a computer that has an idea and a story, like they can do it now. You don't have to go through the gatekeepers. You don't have to have a lot of money. Because good content, good, beautiful, creative content made with love, it will find its home. Like you said, there's 8 billion people on the planet. You don't need hundreds of thousands or millions of followers. You really just need 1,000. There's a great essay by Kevin Kelly called 1,000 True Fans. And if you can find 1,000 people that dig your stuff and they're willing to pay you $100 a year for your stuff, well, that's $100,000 right there, right? And, that's more than most people need. And if they're your true fan, of course.
More than most people make.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the key. Go super niche, find those 1,000 true fans, treat them like the gods they are, just love them, and they will love you back. It's a circle of love. It's not that complicated.
Yeah. And as you said, the red tape, finally, it's cut through the red tape. I know a lot of retouchers at the moment go, oh, this whole AI thing. But weren't they 10, 15 years ago saying the same thing about Photoshop and then all those developments that came from Adobe? And now it's AI everywhere. I mean, you can take your phone. Imagine if you would go back 20 years ago and you would take today's phone with you 20 years back and you show them what you can do on a phone now. It's insane.
Yeah, they would be quite amazed. But you're right. Most people are afraid. But even if you just take AI and modern tools out of it, most of the 8 billion people on Earth are actually motivated by fear. It's a terrible thing. It's almost like a bug in human design. And the media is so good at exploiting fear and making people even more scared. Whether it's politics or war or you name it, like most people just like they live in fear and it's terrible. And it's whatever we could do to help move people from fear into love, that's really important because fear can guide you into making bad decisions. It's more of a feeling of scarcity. And in a lot of ways, there's really nothing to be afraid of. Like, we're all just lucky to be here, really. It's a big, beautiful earth. There's so much opportunity. There's, bountiful food. There's, I think a lot of people that are afraid, they tend to surround themselves with other people that are afraid, very negative people. And it can all be a kind of victim-y. And I call them like the victim Bermuda Triangle. They all just kind of try to out-complain everybody. But really, it's just a mindset. If you just go into it with, if you just be loving and be kind and help other people, that's all you have to do. People make life too complicated. And if you do have a lot of...
I think that's a perfect segue I can't even speak today, to your new book. I have to say, I've been quite fascinated. Tell the world about your new book, because that's quite, as I said, out there.
Yes, it's not published yet. I now have about 50 test readers in there doing some going through it. And it's nice to get feedback from so many people because it's a very different book for me. I don't think anyone would expect for me to release a book about spirituality. And yeah, I've got a very interesting approach to it all. I think, my degree is computer science and math. I've always been like a man of science. I was even like a card-carrying devout atheist for most of my life, even though I went to Jesuit schools and they tried to brainwash me and blah, blah, blah. And I've always been like evidence required science. But then as I became a full-time artist in my mid-30s, I started becoming more present and I started experiencing the earth in a different way, ways that science couldn't really explain. And then in my 40s, I started to go to Burning Man. I started experimenting with psychedelics, and I started to have some fairly transcendent experiences, things I couldn't explain, that science couldn't explain, and I would feel things. I would sense things that could not be measured, but were very real. I then did many ayahuasca ceremonies, 5-MeO DMT. I mean, I've done it all, and I've had all sorts of beautiful, incredible experiences. And in the meantime, I started getting into yoga and meditation. I read everything from Eckhart Tolle to Michael Singer to Krishnamurti and Ram Dass. So I read all these books. And so really for the last 15 years, I've been integrating my hardcore sciencey stuff with my spirituality side and fusing them into a dance that makes sense. And really what culminated in this book was an event I had in Scotland. Happened to be on the night of my birthday. I was there in a hotel where Edinburgh Castle is. It's on this old volcano with a lot of energy there. And I won't go into all the details because they're all in the book. But I basically just automatically said these 24 magical words. They're just all jammed together. And then totally involuntarily, I don't remember what they were. And then I just passed out face first on the bed. I didn't even have a chance to put out my hands. And my soul was just ripped out of my body. Like my body was just like a television set that had been turned off. And I shot through space and I went into the spirit realm for a while. And it was incredible. And it's nothing like any drug experience I've ever had. It's real. And as I went into it, I was like, oh, everything makes so much sense. I understood everything about my life. And unfortunately, I didn't get to bring that knowledge back with me. That was erased. But for a time, I really understood everything. And I felt like I had just completed Mission Planet Earth. And I was seeing all my soul friends and we had all come to Earth together, do this mission or maybe many missions together. And I was like, oh, wow, it makes so much sense. And then I was only there maybe half an hour and I was sent back to my body in Scotland. And then I've spent the last 8 or 9 months trying to piece it together, what the hell just happened to me? And since then, I've had so many other experiences. I've had visions. I close my eyes and I see ancient Hebrew flashing in my eyes, or I see different scenes from antiquity. My lucid dreaming has been crazy. Astral projections. I wake up with entities in my bed. I haven't had any alien interactions yet, as far as I know, but I've had to do a lot of research to piece together what the hell was happening to me. And I figured it out. And I've actually been able to look at reality in a totally different way. And that's really what this book is about. It fuses together my hardcore science and my spirituality and stuff that I've been experiencing. And so I kind of take people on this crazy adventure. People thought I was psychotic. I ended up in 2 mental hospitals. I was in ambulances, roughed up by cops. I was tackled in solitary confinement and pinned down, and they ripped down my pants while they injected me with stuff. And I was like a caged werewolf. And man, I had so many visions. I saw different kinds of realities. It was so beautiful and transcendent, even though there were some dark times. But it's a wonderful adventure, and I hope people enjoy reading it. It's funny. There's lots of hilarious stuff in there. And I kind of guide you down this path, and I show you what I think is going on. I'm not preachy. I'm not talking about Christianity or Judaism or Islam or anything like that. I mentioned them all, but I'm not pitching any kind of religion. I don't want to be anybody's guru. I'm not going to sell.
Church, no Trey Ratcliff church coming anytime soon.
No, I do watch a lot of these cult documentaries. They do look pretty fun. A lot of fun pool parties at these.
A lot of brainwashing as well.
Yeah, so I might do that. I need a Sasha though. So if anyone wants to help me start a cult, I mean, why not? But we'll just be very clear about it. We're not gonna sugarcoat it. We're not gonna make it seem like, oh, it's a commune. We're just gonna say, no, it's a cult.
There's not going to be any story of Jesus went onto a boat and then went to America and started something. So we're not going that direction. The funny thing is, I think people will end up just like me, thinking, oh yeah, I'll have a quick look for a couple of minutes. What the heck did Trey send me this time? And then 3 hours later, you're still sitting there totally forgetting time. I think in the first few sentences already you mentioned prison, ambulances being completely gone, this and that. Like in the first few sentences, if that is not a hook, then I cannot help it. I think that's pretty hooky. It sounds also a little bit nuts, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think the only reason why I take all of this halfway serious is because I know how analytical you can think. If you would be just a dreamer, I would just put you into the loony category. Let's be honest. But knowing that with your background and we know each other for so long, that's why I kept reading, because I wanted to see where does the analysis of the whole thing start, or is it all just a made up GUI of wannabe? And I think people will be surprised yeah.
I think so too. And I hope it really helps people who have had mental illness issues and people who have had to deal with people with mental health issues, because there's a lot of confusion out there. And a week after my event in Scotland, when I was in New York and I was in ambulances, and that's what the doctors call psychosis. In a lot of ways, that's not really the right name. And it has such a negative connotation. It's not far from psychotic, which means you're just one axe short of being an axe murderer. And they kind of put it all under this psychosis type umbrella, when really, in all of my research, I really prefer what Stanislav Grof says about it. And he's a wonderful Austrian researcher, and he's done 10,000 different LSD type. He's managed many of those sessions, and he's written all kinds of books. And instead of the word psychosis, he uses the word spiritual emergence, which is actually a common thing that happens to people all around the world and has forever. And it usually lasts 30 to 40 days. And it can be caused by anything. It could be caused by a death in the family. It could be a drug overdose. It could be something traumatic that happens to you, or it could just randomly happen. And during these periods, you do experience a different reality. You see things differently. You can see between the veil and different dimensions and parallel realities, and you see yourself in a very different light. And it's a really beautiful thing. And commonly, when this would happen in history, before modern medicine, you would sit there with the village shaman or the medicine women, and they would take care of you. You're in a safe place. You're in the forest. You're not in the middle of a super violent urban jungle like Brooklyn, where anybody that's acting a little bit different, they just take you and they stick you in an insane asylum and they tranquilize you and they tie you down to beds, and which is not the right way to handle a spiritual emergence. And so it's given me tremendous empathy for people. My mom had schizophrenia, which is different than psychosis. Schizophrenia is a lifelong thing. And so I know she's been in mental asylums, so I felt so much empathy for her and other people. And also you get to read in this book about because I chat everybody up in these insane asylums because I want to get to know people. There's nothing else to do. I'm like you, I'm chatty. And a lot of these people didn't deserve to be in there. They were just learning divergent, or they were ADD, or their brains went super fast. And gosh, there's a lot of terrible stuff that happens in there. And as much as I don't like a lot of stuff that happens in our current medical system, the way we treat mental health it could use a lot more assistance.
The first time I had an experience in that regard was not personal, but when I just came out of uni, I worked at Hewlett Packard for 4 years. And one of my coworkers, she always talked about outer body experiences, that she sits there in the office and just for a couple of minutes sort of feels like she's leaving her body and coming back. And I always thought she was a loony, but I sticked with her because she was absolutely drop-dead gorgeous and nice. But I couldn't quite comprehend what she was telling me. But that was the first time that I actually knew someone who was dead serious about those experiences. And sometimes she said it was quite frightening in these situations. And thinking back now that I'm a little bit older, I read a lot about these sort of things. And I think where it becomes interesting, I think this is how I see it. If one person tells you something, be critical. If 10 people describe similar things, they either know each other or there might be something to it. But if you find hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people who experience and explain similar things, there might actually be something to it. So we're not just complete loonies. There might actually be something to it. So when is that book out?
Pretty soon. I hope in the next 4 to 6 weeks. But actually, even before people read my book, I'm going to recommend 2 other books that I think would really help people and just be very interesting. And it goes to what you just said. If you hear a lot of the same reports from 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people, that amount of overlap and reinforcement is basically scientific evidence to me, right? If you hear different people from different walks of life from all around the world tell extremely similar stories, either about the afterlife or out-of-body experiences, or talking about their past lives and how it affects this life. So the 2 books I'd recommend, the first one is 3 Waves of Volunteers for a New Earth by Dolores Cannon. And the second one is Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton, or the sequel to that, Destiny of Souls. They all have good audio versions. I don't think Journey of Souls has an audio version, but that will help to give you another view on reality and really make you think about your life and people in your life and decisions you've made and your soulmate and your close friends. I've found it to be one of the most liberating and life-affirming books I've ever read. And it's helped me put together all the pieces of the puzzle of my life. I'm like, I feel like Sherlock Holmes, like the young, dapper Benedict Cumberbatch that finally figures it out. I'm like, I see it. Yeah, so those 2 books have been invaluable to me in my search. And that may get you going down the rabbit hole of these kinds of books. And it's just fascinating. And you'll just have a great time. No matter what. And if you're like me and you kind of felt like you never really fit in on Earth in a way, sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't. Things will make even more sense to you after you read these books. Yeah. But anyway, so mine should be out maybe in 4 to 6 weeks. I'm looking into doing an audible version of it. Just lots of little niggling things to do.
I think that will be cool. The people that watch this generally or watch my content, they're mostly interested in photography. So I hope they all followed us on this little trip away from photography. But everybody, do yourself a favor. Go and have a look in the description below. There's 2 things that I want you to look at. Number 1, follow Trey. Go and have a look at what he's doing in case you haven't seen. But also just do yourself a favor and watch some of his Instagram stories. You will see this beautiful landscape of New Zealand where he goes on walks and meets all kinds of interesting characters. I think that just shows a little bit of life, because for us artists, we're always, showing our artwork, but behind the artwork stands an artist and a human being, and we generally don't take ourselves too serious. And any last words before we close this baby down?
No, just get out there and create. I think creation is a sort of like a sideways meditation. When you lose track of time, then you're really doing what you were meant to do here on Earth. So yeah, just get out there and create and be your own person. Like Stephan said earlier, don't follow trends or anything. Just find what gets you excited and play. You know, life is not to be taken that seriously. Have a good time and just make the world a more loving, awesome place. That's all there is to it.
I couldn't say it any better. Well, I say don't be afraid to fail. The city of perfection doesn't exist, but the drive there is absolutely amazing. And the last thing that I always say with all those episodes is behave yourself or not, but go out and create something awesome.